Hey everyone, welcome back to Roto Grinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's Wednesday, May 25th, and we got a nice little 7-game early slate here. DB is going to handle the 8-game late slate on the Fantasy Fix podcast. So if you're coming to this podcast to listen to about the late games, you want to switch on over there to the Fantasy Fix podcast. I'm joined today by Jeff El Jefe. How you doing, my friend?
Doing really well, Stevie. I think that this is actually a pretty good tournament slate. What do you think?
I think it's a great tournament slate, and nothing better than a tournament slate during the day when you're doing stuff and you can watch baseball, and it's just a great tournament slate.
Absolutely, yeah. There's nothing better than having a decent sweat during the daytime as you're building your lineups for the nighttime, at least for someone like me.
Yeah, and you're like, all right, well, I'm doing a little bit better than I thought. Maybe I can back up off some games. Or then the other half may be like, oh, I'm doing really good. Let me put in some more games.
I never back off.
Yeah, I don't either. I wanted to play devil's advocate there for a second.
There might be some crazy people out there, that are smart and hedge a little bit, but not me.
I do want to mention two things before we get going here. Actually, three things, really. The first thing, if you haven't checked out our sponsor, FantasyDraft.com, make sure you guys go over there, check them out. Use promo code GRINDERS. If you like the podcast, they're supporting us to be able to do this every day, so check that out. They also have PGA this weekend. It's their first weekend of PGA. You're going to find some gems. That's all I'm going to say. It's their first week, so you just have to understand that there's going to be some prices and stuff like that. So I wanted to mention that. So make sure if you guys haven't checked them out, check them out because, hey, they help us do this every day. Second thing I want to mention before we keep going here, Illinois. We have a lot of stuff going on here, with Daily Fantasy. Take the time, the 1 or 2 minutes it's going to take you, go to the forms. It's pinned at the top. Fill that out and send that in. Even if you don't live in that state, it's a big state for Daily Fantasy. It's a state that we want to see a bill pass because that's going to open up a lot of things for a lot of other states. So make sure you take the time to do that. Third and last thing before we get into this baseball slate, it's the last day to submit a question to Ty Dillon where he's answering 10 questions, the NASCAR driver, exclusively here for Roto Grinders community. We're going to shoot that on Saturday this weekend. So make sure you guys get those questions in before 9 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday. It's just a lot of fun. And the 10 questions that we pick, you're going to get a Roto Grinders t-shirt and a chance to win a Ty Dillon signed hat. So make sure you guys check that promo out. Check out the PGA and make sure you guys go in and fill that out and send that in for Fantasy Supports All. And Jeff, let's talk some baseball, my friend.
Let's do that.
First game, we got New York and Washington, Steven Matz and Tanner Roark. Man, Roark is so annoying. Like, I stack against him, and it pays off probably 30% of the time, and then he goes out and has like 7 strikeout games. He's not a strikeout pitcher.
He's definitely not a strikeout pitcher. One of the worst strikeout pitchers on the slate, if not the worst. So that does make you want to stack against him, and like you said, there's been mixed results with that this year. He's pitched to a pretty solid ERA, a 3.88 ERA on the season, and the xFIP and Sierra suggests that, he hasn't really gotten lucky or anything. He's actually just pitched well. So it's tough to figure out what to do here. He's not the type of guy that I will really, I don't want to say ever roster, but I think it's rare that I would roster him just because I don't believe in the strikeout upside. And when I'm taking pitchers, that's pretty much the most important thing. So I'm not rostering Tanner Roark. Might pick on him with a couple of these Mets bats, but what about you? You're going to be rostering some Tanner Roark today?
No, not at all. There's a reason that I stack against the guy. Like you said, his strikeout rate is just, it's not there. It's just not there. And it's so frustrating when he goes out and has these strikeout games. And I chalk it up to variance. I don't think he's an awful pitcher. I'm not saying that. I don't think he's this bad pitcher, but he's not a strikeout pitcher. These numbers, I feel like his numbers are solid, but the numbers for strikeouts, it's just skewed. And I want nothing to do with him. What's your thoughts here on Matz, though?
Matz is a guy that I wanted to roster his last time out. I got scared off a little bit because they talked about, I believe it was forearm tightness or something, so I was a little bit nervous there. But now that he had a really good game his last time out and has shown that that's not an issue, I think that we can use him here today. This is a game where neither team is really a favorite. I believe it opened up with literally both teams minus 110. So while they're on the road here, I think he makes for a decent tournament play. What about you?
Man, I have a tough time taking lefties against the Nationals and a lefty on the road. When we look at the Nationals numbers, even the WRC plus are not factoring in ballpark at all. They're, in the top 3 against left-handed pitching. And I still worry about the forearm a little bit. It's still in the back of my head. So having a tough matchup, factoring in price and thinking about that, is he okay with that forearm or not? And his high price tag, it just makes me tough. It makes him a tough play.
Yeah, the good thing about Nationals is they do still strike out at a pretty decent rate against lefties. So while they do have the upside there in terms of maybe you could roster guys against Matz, I do think that Matz's upside is still there with the strikeouts.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I definitely think, he's a guy that I'm going to look at. But I'm going to look at some bats against him as well. I'm not going to stack against him. He's not a stackable pitcher. He's not going to go up and give up 3 or 4 home runs on a slate. So when I'm looking at bats against him, man, Anthony Rendon is hot. And we can throw out the numbers from last year, right? Like, he was hurt. And if we're looking at his 2014 numbers, the guy was just fantastic against left-handed pitching.
That's been his thing, over his career is his splits against left-handed pitching. Like you said, it wasn't there last year, but we're seeing him hit well this year. When you look at his batted ball profiles, I think it's suggesting that he's going to have a nice run of power here, and against a lefty wouldn't be a bad place to roster him, I think.
Any other bats that you want to target here against Matz? I know it's not going to be a spot that we're really going to go heavy, but on a 7-game slate, I don't mind taking some shots on the guys like that I think will be less than 5% owned.
Worth is one of those guys. I think Ramos is another one of those guys. Ramos has done better against right-handed pitchers so far this year, but that's something that's kind of just variance, I think, and he'll come around against lefties. He's been a very good hitter so far this year. His price is a little bit up there, but that tends to make him somewhat contrarian considering he bats down at the bottom of that order. So I like Worth and Ramos. Like you said, I don't think they'll be very highly owned, so they make for nice contrarian plays.
Now, Zimmerman's a guy I feel like his price tag on FanDuel is very favorable here. It's only, I think, it's 3,300. So I feel like he's another guy that should be less than 5% owned that has some upside here in this matchup. I'm not going crazy. Mets bats. Anybody you like here against Rourke?
I kind of like David Wright a little bit, as long as, the whole team's been dealing with some injuries. They've got Duda out. I know Wright sat out a game the other day, but assuming a Wright's in there, I like him batting second there. He is getting the ball in the air a lot more this year, hitting the ball really hard. I talk about that stuff a lot because that's a lot of what I look at being a tournament guy, looking at things that would suggest someone hitting a home run. I think Wright has a decent chance at third base to do that today.
Yeah, I don't mind Wright. And another guy that I've been playing a lot is Conforto. Price tag's up on FanDuel. It's down on Fantasy Draft. It's going to be a spot play for me. I might not play him a lot on FanDuel, but I'm going to have a lot of shares on him on Fantasy Draft at only 7,500.
I like that call.
Any other bats here? Cespedes against a righty. I don't mind him because everybody thinks, righty-lefty matchups are the way to go, but Cespedes shows a lot more power against righties.
I think back when he was with the A's, he might have been more of a better play against lefties. I don't know. That's kind of off memory. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, in recent times, he's been more of a reverse splits guy. And of course, this matchup against Rourke would seem like a good one to use him as well.
Philadelphia at Detroit, Aaron Nola, Anibal Sanchez. Detroit swinging hot bats right now. Is this a spot that, we can look elsewhere on Aaron Nola? Because you know what I'm going to say. I'm a massive Aaron Nola fan, so I tend to roll him out there. I don't care who the opponent is. So I'm biased. What's your thoughts?
I'm a little bit biased the other direction just because here, let me brag for a second. So the last time Nola went out and pitched, Draft Cheat and I had a show. Dave Potts, Cheese is Good, went out and tweeted talking about how everyone needs to tune into the show and ask Jeff and DC why they didn't rank Aaron Nola number one. We were the only two that didn't, and Aaron Nola, of course, busted that day. Jeff Cheat and I thought Nola was a decent play. We just like a couple guys more than him. But So I'm kind of biased. Like, I feel like I'm the Aaron Nola hater now, even though I didn't really hate him. This is just a really tough matchup for him against Detroit. You mentioned how they're starting to swing the bats well. Ian Kinsler missed tonight's game. We're recording this the night before, and he would be certainly an upgrade if he were out of the lineup again. It would be an upgrade for Aaron Nola. But assuming that the normal Tigers are in there, it's going to be a really tough matchup for him, and I'm probably not going to go that direction.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go that way either. Like, when you look at Nola, he's really good against righties. We've noticed that last year. We've continued to see it this year. He's really good against righties. So he has that going for him. It probably has a lot to do with his curveball. He probably gets a lot of, and I haven't dug into everything today, but I know he gets a lot of swinging and missing on his curveball, a lot of out of zone swinging strikes. So he has that going for him in a matchup where he's probably going to see quite a bit of righties. The thing is, I don't care who the pitcher is. When Miguel Cabrera is hot, I typically stay away from the Tigers because, dude, he could put up 2 or 3 or 4 runs against you just by himself.
He had a 2-home-run game 2 nights ago, so that's not an exaggeration at all. Miguel Cabrera is locked in right now. There's a lot of guys on this lineup that are locked in. Even Saltalamacchia down there, I wouldn't mind using him if these Tigers are going to be contrarian. I think you can stack them as well. Of course, Aaron Nola being a good pitcher, no one likes to stack against good pitchers, but this lineup has the upside for it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Nola is a bad play because how this shapes up, especially on FanDuel, Anibal Sanchez is on the other side of this game, and he has not pitched well at all this year. So the run support might be there for Nola. So you might play Nola in a tournament team, and then you might stack against him in a tournament team. I don't hate that here.
That is a strategy that might confuse some people, but that I like as well. I did that tonight. This game hasn't started. We'll see how it goes, but I did that with Tillman and the Astros. I took Tillman in some lineups and also some Astro stacks. So I might sound like a complete idiot on one side, depending on how this turns out, but I don't mind that strategy every once in a while.
Anibal Sanchez, his strikeout rate's way down over the last 2 years, really. It's down below 20% to righties. It's still hanging around there at like 23% to lefties, but we're not going to target him here. We love pitchers against the Phillies, but I'm not going to target him. Do you want any shares here?
No, not really. He's kind of just a middling pitcher. There's nothing exciting about him. The only positive thing right now is the matchup for him. So I won't say that I have a strong take either way. He's a guy that maybe if I built a tournament team that I liked with my hitters first and he fit perfectly in, I don't know that I would maneuver around and try to find another pitcher or not. He's just kind of, maybe the last guy in your lineup. And that's a weird approach to take for pitchers outside of anything but tournaments. But tournaments, I actually don't mind doing that a little bit.
Let's talk some bats here. We mentioned the Tigers. We really don't need to get into that. For me, I'll let you speak on it. But for me, it's going to be a stack or nothing. I'm not going to try to single out. If I was going to single out anybody, it's Miggy. He's super hot. He's the one guy you'd want. It's going to be stack or nothing for me. Do you have any thoughts on that?
On the Philly side, is that what you're talking about?
No, Detroit. Are you the same way here? Is it stack? Maybe a Miggy one off?
Well, I do like stacking it, and then I like sprinkling in Saltalamacchia lately. So that might be another thing you see me do. Although it's a day game after night game, Saltalamacchia caught the night before. He might not even be in the lineup.
Yeah, it'd probably be McCann. I tend to agree with you there. Philly bats. Sanchez, a guy that struggles with righties. Franco instantly stands out to me. I know he's been hit or miss lately, but he's always a guy we can look at for power, right?
Him and Tommy Joseph now with them playing in an American League ballpark. I don't know if they jacked his price up for this slate, but tonight he was 2K again. And they just have been using Ryan Howard as the DH, Tommy Joseph at first base. He hit a home run 2 nights ago. We don't know how he did tonight yet, but I like Tommy Joseph as well.
Still 2K, first base, 2K. Fantasy draft, I feel like his price is a little bit higher over there at 6,600, but that's still playable. If he's in that 4 or 5 spot, that's playable for me.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, when we're looking at Anibal Sanchez, like his numbers to righties, 370 WOBA, 2.15 home run per 9 to righties over the last year and a half. So you got to look at some of the righties. Franco, I love the Joseph call. It's a great point, Jeff. I like him a lot, so I'm glad you mentioned him. Any other guys here?
I think that probably covers it. Not a super exciting game.
Tyler Godell, I guess is how he pronounces his name, in the 8th spot, but he continues to hit. I've been playing him a lot as a punt play.
Are you going to laugh at me if I told you I took Peter Burgess today? He was 2.1K. I told Draft Cheat I thought he might hit a home run. Me out on Twitter, he's like, please tell me you didn't use that player that you DM'd me about. And I made him, I told him, I was like, don't tell anyone who that was. That's the guy I was talking about, Peter Burgess.
Getting the inside scoop here on the podcast. Kansas City at Minnesota. Tyler Duffy against Dylan Gee. Any interest here?
I like Miguel Sano as a one-off play lately. Well, I think that you can go to more than just a one-off on the Twins. I don't particularly care for either of these pitchers. But, yeah, I think that the hitters are more interesting. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not on the pitchers. I love taking Kansas City pitchers because they do have a great defense and they have a great bullpen. But I just don't know if Gee's a guy that I want to take.
This is just another game with no real favorite. G opens up as a -115. This totals at 8.5. I feel like this is more of a hitter's game, of course.
Now, looking at the bats, you mentioned Sano. I don't mind Park on Minnesota. Really, outside of those guys, it just doesn't excite me very much. Not
even Joe Mauer hitting a home run the other day? You had to have been excited about that.
Hey, man, he's hitting the ball well. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's not a power guy. What, he's going to hit 5 to 7 home runs?
That would be a lot. Probably not that many.
Yeah, but that's like his ceiling is 7 home runs. He has 3 already. Is he going to get to 4 before the All-Star break?
No.
Yeah,
no more home runs for him before the All-Star break.
If you want a guy that's going to hit 275 to 300, Joe Mauer's your guy.
Yep. Yeah, he's a really, like we've talked about before, he's a better baseball player than he is a DFS player, and he's having a really good baseball player season, So somewhat relevant in DFS. Just I think that I come from the school of Stevie, and the school of Stevie says never roster Joe Mauer, so I don't.
Yeah, me, you, and Boggs. I'll never forget that conversation. We all came out agreeing that he's a better baseball player than he is a DFS player. Now, looking at the other side of things, who do you like here for Kansas City?
Man, again, another team dealing with some injuries. I believe Alex Gordon went on the DL. I was really excited for his prospects moving forward. A lot of the underlying data was suggesting that he was due for a hot streak. So I was super excited to roster him. Of course, he hasn't been in the lineup. Moustakas was another guy. He hasn't been in the lineup, but they've put Whit Merrifield in there batting second. And he has some value right now, especially on certain sites where he's really cheap. So that would be, I think, the first guy you'd have to talk about. Eric Hosmer is a guy you kind of always have to look at. And not a whole lot that's exciting outside of those guys. What do you think?
Yeah, Moustakas, still not in the lineup Tuesday. Dealing with a knee contusion. If we hear that he's going to be okay, we're still going to want to see, they're saying they might have a chance to be out for a few more games to get healthy. And, if this Merrifield guy continues to bat second, he's a plug and play for me, not on FanDuel. He's a first baseman that's 3K. Save the grand and play Tommy Joseph on FanDuel. But on a site like Fantasy Draft, and there's a bunch of sites that don't have him priced up yet, and just take advantage of those sites.
I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah. FanDuel makes it a little bit tough, but there are plenty of sites where he's cheap right now.
I do not mind Hosmer here. He's the one guy is priced on FanDuel as well. You got to pick him up where he's cheap.
I think that's a good way to go. But outside of that, who would you even really look at?
Just going to single you to death. That's what they do. And that's the bad thing. There's spots that you play Kansas City in a stack, on the road in a great hitter's ballpark where they might all get 5 at-bats and each one of them gets 2 or 3 hits. But I just don't know if this is the spot that you really want to target them too much. I don't mind them. If they're cheap places and you want exposure to the 1 through 5, I'm not going to, say anything bad about it.
So yeah, Duffy and G are both guys that have done a pretty good job of keeping the ball on the ground so far this year. Not extremely high fly ball guys, and so for me, you and I both being tournament players, that's why we're just not super excited too. It's like these offenses combined with the fact that Duffy and G, while they're not great pitchers, they are not necessarily teams you can stack up or anything. I think there are good spots to go. We mentioned a couple. I think Sano is a guy, and there are a couple good spots. I think the hitting is more exciting than the pitching, but overall, maybe kind of just an avoid game.
I think so. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Chicago at St. Louis, Jake Arrieta, Carlos Martinez. A year ago, we would have been super excited about Carlos Martinez. He's regressed a lot. I don't want any pieces of him, but Jake Arrieta, top pitcher on the day, and it's not close.
Not even close. The best pitcher on the slate at keeping the ball on the ground, the best at striking guys out pretty much. The just elite stuff against both righties and lefties last year and this year combined. I mean, what else do you have to say about the guy? He's just certainly the guy I would look to start my cash game lineups with.
Yeah, even on a 7-game slate, I'm not going to say don't play him in tournaments because he's just so much better than every other pitcher on the slate. And I hate to say that because we do have a Corey Kluber on the slate, so he's a guy that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But for the most part, it's pretty simple just to say Arrieta is the best pitcher here.
And how many people are going to be scared off of this matchup? We know that the Cardinals play better at home. We know that they play well against right-handed pitchers. We know that Matt Carpenter is starting to come around, and there's some other bats in this lineup that are heating up. But at the same time, it's like one of these equally powerful forces is going to win. And I think that the odds on Arrieta winning this battle it's just huge. He's a -170 favorite. This total is projected at 7. So that gives you an idea of what Vegas thinks of St. Louis' chances today.
Carlos Martinez, his xFIP is up a point. His swinging strike rate is down 3%. His contact percent is up 5%, and his hard contact rate is up 5%. Ground ball rate is still solid at 52%. But all those other stats scream regression, and just, it's just one of those things where I don't mind taking hitters against him here.
Yeah, I agree with you. His xFIP and Sierra aren't too exciting. What's his xFIP's like 349? His ERA's like 312. Is that right? So it's
his xFIP this season is 429.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at bad numbers then. I'm probably looking at last year maybe. I'm looking at
328 was last year. Yeah.
Last year and this year combined is what I'm looking at. So yeah, if that's the case, those are all really good numbers that would suggest regression, and in that case, you do want to stack against pitchers like that. And you've got an offense right here in the Cubs that is just extremely powerful, a ton of upside. And Chris Bryant would be one of my favorite plays on the board, I would think. It's a righty-righty matchup, sure, but he's probably going to be batting, second or third, somewhere around there. And I think that he has a ton of upside in this matchup.
Yeah, and I feel like the Cubs, factoring in price and matchup against Carlos Martinez, he's still a name. And I feel like they're going to be really under-owned here. And on a 7-game slate, if I can get an offense as powerful as the Cubs, I like it a lot.
I agree.
I'm not taking any bats against Arrieta. I'm perfectly okay with not taking any bats against him.
The only one I would consider is Matt Carpenter, but I'm with you. I probably wouldn't do it either.
LA at Texas, the Rangers and the Angels here. Hector Santiago, Colby Lewis. Colby Lewis, 3-0. Is he a guy that we can pick on here?
Oh man, Colby Lewis. I think he's had some decent outings. Of course, he's had 2.75 ERA. Of course, he's had some decent outings, but he's just the ultimate fly ball hard contact guy that you want to attack in tournaments. So of course I'm going to have a stack against him. I'm not going to be super optimistic about it just because of how well he's pitched so far this year. He's gotten a little bit lucky. You look at the BABIP, you look at xFIPs, the Sierra, that sort of stuff. He's got a little bit lucky, but not to the point where it's like, oh well, Colby Lewis has pitched awful this year. He's pitched, slightly below average maybe. So you wonder. So the question you have to ask yourself is: everyone still in stack against Colby Lewis mode? And if they're going to be, hitters against him are going to be over-owned in the near future, maybe you do just hope that Colby Lewis stays decent, and maybe you play the fade. What do you think? You'd like to talk about game theory with me a little bit and ownership percentage, and we have to think about that as tournament players. Where do you stand on this slate with Colby Lewis?
I feel like ownership going to be high on the Angels here. Looking at the over-under, looking at the total, looking at the slate, man. So if I make 10 teams, it's super early on Tuesday night. I have no idea what I'm doing for Wednesday morning yet. If I make 10 teams, I will make one Angel stack just to have my chalk covered, and I'm going to pray that Colby Lewis continues to pitch really well.
I don't mind that because, you mentioned the total. The total's 9.5, guys.
Yeah,
it's huge. Texas is the favorite, so Texas is still an attractive side of this game too. But the nice thing about the Angels is when they have a high total, a high implied team total, you pretty much know where that production is going to come from. It's coming from Trout, in a sense, a little bit from Pujols, and apparently right now Johnny Giovatella is just on fire. But aside from that, they don't have a very strong lineup, so it is easy to pinpoint where that production is from. That's attractive. But at the same time, on a short slate, if Mike Trout is going to be the 40% owned hitter, I'm absolutely all about fading him. I think he's a great play. It's just a matter of ownership, and it's too early for us to even have a good idea of what we think that'll be. But tomorrow, those are the questions that you and I are going to be asking ourselves, and trying to figure out whether there's value in rostering Trout and GPPs or not.
Yeah, and if you're going to play Trout, take a non-chalk pitcher. Take a shot on a guy like me and Jeff might have been questionable about, maybe like a Steven Matz or, like an Aaron Nola, where the pitcher is going to be low-owned and you're going to have the high-owned hitter. And it all depends on roster construction. If you can fit in Mike Trout with Arrieta, his ownership is going to be ridiculous, and I'm going to be the same way.
I talked about this in my game selection article today. I think another way that you can be contrarian while still attacking chalky players that you like is to mix in really contrarian stacks. And it can be from good teams that you like. Like maybe you like the Rangers, but you take the bottom of that Rangers lineup instead of the top. So you've got exposure to the Rangers, Trout, and then your favorite pitcher still, yet you're somehow still contrarian. Like that's how good tournament players think, is they still get exposure to what they want, but they get it at lower ownership levels than other people. So that would be the line of thinking I'd recommend.
I like it, Jeff. I like it. Giving out good picks, and we're giving out some game theory here. Hector Santiago, I want him to pitch good, and he's just not pitching good. Like, I'm a big fan of him. It's just not happening, and man, it hurts my feelings because I really think that he's a good pitcher. He's not putting it all together. 4.81 xFIP this season, right back up to what we've seen. And it was like 3.4 to 3.7 for the first few starts this season. And it just shows you how much he has declined here to start the year. I like the bats here, but we go back to thinking what right-handed bats outside of Beltre do we really want to target him with here?
Yeah, that's part of it. The thing with Santiago is that his velocity has been up and down start to start. And, reporters have questioned him about it. He says he's aware of it. So it's a really hard puzzle to crack. It's really hard to project his production, his efficiency start to start. And that affects whether you want to use him as a pitcher and whether you want to attack him with the hitters on the other side. With the Rangers, the guy that would stand out to me is Ian Desmond. Yeah. I think that he's an attractive option. You mentioned Adrian Beltre. I'm not sure if I've rostered him once this year. I might have, just in a stacking situation. I just haven't been a huge fan of him at his old age, but maybe that's on me as a mistake. Maybe I should be looking to him in this matchup. But Desmond and maybe even Drew Stubbs, if he gets in there at a high spot in the order, he hasn't
Stubbs
done
went
much.
Stubbs went on the deal.
Oh man, see, that's a guy that is always super cheap, and then we've seen upside from him against lefties, but that rules that out. So I guess Desmond would be the guy for me.
Yeah, Ryan Rue maybe as a punt play if he's cheap, like minimum salary somewhere. Another guy you can look at. That's just another righty. He should be in the lineup. They called up Joey Gallo, but it's a lefty-lefty matchup. I doubt he plays here. I just can't get super excited about rostering anybody outside of Desmond. Maybe Beltray, like I said. And man, I'm not going to lie to you. I might have a tournament team with Santiago because I think that he might be less than 5% owned, and he still has strikeout upside.
I'm kind of with you, and I think we're probably crazy. People might be turning off this podcast by now because, like I said, this is a 9.5 projected total, and we're not excited about either of these sides. I mean, we like Mike Trout. We're just concerned about ownership percentage, I think, but we're not really super excited about these Rangers hitters. I think they are a decent fade. The one thing that is contributing to this high total lately is that it's been hot in Texas. It's been days in the 80s, mid 80s, which at this point of the year, we're not seeing a ton of that right now. So if this game's being played in an environment where it's hot, whereas the other games are kind of, in the 70s or something, then that's a big boost for the hitters. It's just the problem is figuring out which guys you want. So I think some exposure to this game is good. I just don't know where to tell you to get it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's an interesting game. And if we get the feel that it's going to be a highly stacked game, I'm going to be off of it. Not completely. I'm not saying faded completely. It's a 7-game slate. If I run multiple teams, I'm going to have maybe a game stack just to kind of fit in, everybody from that game, take a picture, and just, if it goes off, just let it go off.
I like that. That's the good idea, right?
Yeah.
Because then we don't feel bad if this game just goes off. We have that game stack, and otherwise we're kind of just fading it altogether. I like that approach. I might steal that from you.
No, and if it stinks, then we're way ahead of the field with the rest of the teams we roll out there. Cleveland at Chicago taking on the White Sox. Jose Quintana against Corey Kluber. I like both these pitchers in this game.
I kind of do too. Yeah, I like Kluber a little bit more, I think, but Quintana's been a guy that's just super safe. He's never really going to get blown up, I don't think. And against the Indians here, I wouldn't be worried about that too, with a lot of their good bats coming from the left side or being switch hitters with, Kipnis and Santana being a switch hitter, Lindor a switch hitter. I agree with you. I think this is a pretty good game for pitching.
Yeah, I really don't want a lot of bats here. When we're looking at Kluber, he hasn't been Kluber-like, but he's still averaging just under a strikeout per inning, 59 innings, 58 strikeouts. So, it's just one of those things. He's coming off of a good game. It wasn't great, but it was a good game against Boston at Fenway. So hopefully he can build off of that. And we see him run some good starts here back to back to back. So, when we're looking at the White Sox, we're talking about this the night before. Frazier's extremely hot right now. Adam Eaton was starting to square the ball up a little bit more on Tuesday. Monday. Yeah, Monday. Yeah, anyway, was starting to square the ball up more. It might even been Sunday. But either way, so it'd be interesting to see, but I like Kluber here. I think he's an excellent tournament play if you want to kind of pivot off of Arrieta.
I kind of like it too. 52.2% ground ball rate for Kluber. That's a good thing. I think that he has a chance to get some strikeouts in this game as well. The guys that you're worried about are Frazier and Abreu, but those are also guys that can strike out, of course. So I like the upside there for Kluber.
Yeah, I was extremely high on Abreu, and we're recording the podcast while that game's going. So if he comes out and he gets out of this 2 for 20 slump and nail the bounce back, kind of effort, he's probably going to be a good play again. I wouldn't classify him as a Jay Bruce kind of streaky hitter, but we've seen Jose Abreu now. He's kind of a streaky hitter as well.
And he just has so much power upside. We've saw his rookie year, what, he had 50 home runs or something? I mean, the dude obviously crushes the ball.
And I know you like Frazier. I don't even have to say, I know Jeff's going to have some Frazier.
No doubt. Yeah, this is a guy that gets hated on way too much. And if you look at his peripheral numbers, it was obvious that he was going to come around a little bit, and no one really bought into it. Now, last time I looked, I think he was tied for the American League lead in home runs, and people just have no idea. People just hate Todd Frazier for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm sure I'll have some exposure.
Yeah, they wanted him to pivot from Cincinnati to Chicago and do bad. And he's doing Todd Frazier things, and we'll see what happens. When we're looking at the bats, Frazier, Abreu, maybe Eaton. Really, I'm going for the two power guys. It's Corey Kluber. I'm not going to pick on him a lot. I'm going to take the two power guys against him in tournaments. Now, looking at the other side, Jose Quintana, like we said, good ground ball pitcher. Do we really want to target him a lot here?
Maybe with what do you think about using Rajay? I know that maybe the steal upside isn't as great against a lefty, but he's shown some power against lefties so far this year. Had a really good series against Cincinnati a week or two ago. Will probably be batting leadoff, I'm guessing. What do you think about him in a tournament?
Don't hate it. When we look at his historic numbers, especially over the last few years, much better against lefties. So if he's in the leadoff spot, his price is up. He'll probably be really low owned because not a lot of people want to target guys like him. So I don't hate that. What are your thoughts here on Mike Napoli? We took a ground ball pitcher with a guy with a massive uppercut swing. He's a good tournament play for me.
That's a really good point that you made there about his swing type fitting well against a ground ball pitcher. I think that Mike Napoli makes for a really good play. He's only 2,800 on FanDuel. Should probably be batting cleanup there. Can get some. Hopefully, he can get some runners on and maybe jack one out. Decent, good tournament play there.
And just because I know you don't look at it, Rajai Davis actually has some good BVP against Quintana. So, 13 for 41, 317 average, and a home run, and three doubles and a triple. So I don't hate it. And Napoli actually has good success in small sample size. So I like those two guys. We're going to move out here. San Diego taking on your Giants. We love picking on San Diego. It's like one of our favorite things to do. Can you do it here with PV? Factoring in he's only 5,900.
I don't think so. Everything points to wanting to use whatever pitcher is throwing. The ballpark, the opponent, how well the Giants have been playing lately. But then you just look at what PV's been doing this year, and it is ugly, man. I can't do it. His hard contact rate leads the slate. He's going to give up a decent amount of fly balls, which isn't awful in this ballpark. That's decent for him. But at the same time, he's just getting hit around in general. It's not just like the home runs that are getting him. There have been a lot of batters that he's just leaving a lot of runners on base. I will say, too, that I don't expect Buster Posey to be catching tomorrow, this being the day game after a night game. Buster Posey started the night before, and that's a huge downgrade for PV. If you're bored in halftime, go back and look at the two starts that Jake Peavy made when Buster Posey wasn't catching. He gave up I think it's been two starts, and he's given up about 15, 16 runs. So those kind of things often get overlooked. But Trevor Brown being a rookie catcher, a young catcher, is usually going to defer to PV. PV's pretty much going to call his own game, and that's not necessarily a good thing for an aggressive guy like PV. He's going to be challenging a lot of guys. I really like the Padres stack. I know I just talked for like 5 minutes straight, so I'll let you talk now.
No, man, go for it. Yeah, you're a Giants fan, so why not better, than you to talk about the Giants? So, it's great. When we start talking Red Sox, that's the team that I watch the most. So you want to talk about good catchers. Vasquez, man. Ooh, buddy, that kid, maybe I would say top 5 defensive catcher in baseball. Molina probably still number 1, but Perez a solid 2. Watch this kid for Boston. Anyway, let's get back to this game. PV, you're saying his 8.21 ERA is not something you want to target here. 38% hard contact rate this season, only a 13% soft contact rate. I really, really want Will Myers to be in the lineup and Matt Kemp. If we're talking two guys that can hit at any ballpark in baseball, it's Matt Kemp and Will Myers.
I agree. I think that Brett Wallace would be another guy too.
Don't go crazy now.
Yeah, I'm just saying, all of a sudden, a lot of hitters become interesting when it's Jake Peavy on the mound. I think that he's pretty much done. I don't think he finishes this year on the Giants roster. They'll either make an upgrade or he'll have this phantom injury that's not really an injury or something. I don't think he makes the playoff roster. And we might as well take advantage while we can. He might not be there forever. Think of John Danks, right? We lost our opportunity to stack against John Danks. This is might be one of our last opportunities to stack against Jake Peavy, so take advantage.
But the Tim Lincecum stacks are coming.
That's true. I'm pretty excited about that, being a Giants fan and knowing how much he sucks right now. Yeah, absolutely.
So Posey might be out of the lineup. Hunter Pence is banged up day-to-day, dealing with a hamstring. They said he's not even going to pinch hit in the game on Tuesday. He's definitely not going to play. If he's out of the lineup and Posey's out of the lineup, is there any interest in tournaments here for Shields, knowing at what we know about Peavy getting some run support here for Shields? I don't think it's a bad play.
It's not a bad play. It's a really good tournament play. The Padres are small favorites here. They're plus 135. But if, like you just mentioned, Posey's out, although Posey might play first, I guess. I just know he's almost certainly.
No
Belt. Yeah,
well, they could put Belt out in right field.
They haven't been doing that lately. They used to do that, but I don't think they've done that this year. I could be wrong about that, but I do think there's a decent chance Posey plays first and Belt sits. But you're right. I could see either way. I do think Shields is interesting in tournaments. 7.5 projected total here. Like you said, if we think it's another really cool tournament strategy is take Shields and take 3 of those hitters we just talked about from the Padres. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you've got a really positively correlated lineup where you need the hitters to do well anyway if Shields is going to get the win and pay off. So I like that play a lot.
Yeah, I love doing that. I talk about that on the podcast all the time. Melvin Upton Jr.
Ugh, no.
No, listen. Hear me out.
Okay.
If Posey isn't catching, Melvin Upton Jr. is a guy that loves to run. Yes, granted, he still has to get on base. But if Posey isn't catching, Melvin Upton Jr. is going to be a guy I target in tournaments just purely on the chances to maybe swipe 2 bags. I know I'm not changing your mind.
Well, you are making me think. That's why I'm hesitating. Otherwise, I just would have said no again.
You got a rookie catcher with a pitcher that's going to be aggressive. Why not take a shot on a stolen base guy like Melvin Upton?
I actually don't hate it. Yeah, I think that you might have convinced me there, especially he's going to be batting in the middle of that lineup too. And like I said, that Peavy's been giving up just a ton of base runners. And if the bases are going to be juiced a lot, then yeah, I guess Upton's a pretty good play even without the steal upside.
Yeah, and if you're thinking like what everybody else is going to be thinking, everybody knows Peavy's bad. It's not a secret. People are going to probably put John Jay as their stack man instead of Melvin Upton because everybody thinks that BJ Upton sucks. And why I want to think that, and if we think over the last few years, he really has stunk. He's actually not playing bad this year. It pains me to say that because I think he stinks too, but he's not been bad this year.
259 with 6 home runs and 9 steals. That is not what the numbers you would guess from Melvin Upton. So I'm with you. I think there's a little bit of unjust bias there, and we can probably capitalize on some low ownership. I actually don't think this stack will be popular at all, even though it is against Peavy, just because of the ballpark and what people perceive these offenses at. San Diego is just not a good offense. I don't think people are going to. I think people are going to undervalue the upside for San Diego.
I definitely agree with that. That's pretty much going to wrap it up here for us on the slate. We got to play some home run derby, though. We can't not have a podcast and play some home run derby. So, and then I'll get to my fantasy draft plays after we do the home run derby. I didn't do them as we were going. It's just always fun doing podcasts with you, Jeff. We always get into some game theory and we try to think with each other because we're both like these tournament guys that like 5% owned guys, and it's just fun to do the podcast. So I'll let you lead off the home run derby here. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go with Miguel Sano.
Sano, I like it. Not chalky at all. I'm gonna actually steal your boy here. I'm gonna go Tommy Joseph.
Oh, I was gonna take him first. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that call.
I want right-handed bats against Sanchez.
I think that's smart. I was gonna go there. And then I scrolled down a little bit and saw Sano. So I like that call a lot. I will go with Mike Trout.
That's chalky. I expect better from you. I expect better. I'm gonna go non-chalk again. I'm gonna go Brandon Crawford.
Oh wow, that is bold. It's hard to hit home runs out in right field at AT&T Park, but
Yeah,
I like
we see
the
him do it a
boldness.
lot though.
Sure,
Not a lot, but if there's somebody that can do it, we know it's Crawford.
exactly. I will go just because he's my boy. I'm going with Todd Frazier then.
Frazier, I like it. Let's see. I want to go crazy one more time here. I don't want to go Desmond. I feel like that's too chalky. I'm gonna go Beltre. I don't think that's too chalky, right?
No, yeah, that's a fair one.
All right. So if you had to pick one pitcher here on this morning slate to pick up the win, not named Jake Arrieta, I'm not going to let you go chalk on me here. Who would it be?
James Shields.
I like that. I really think he's going to get a ton of run support.
Yeah, you talked me into it. You better like it.
Dude. I'm going to go here with Jose Quintana. He's been limiting damage, and I know it's a matchup with Kluber. I like his chances to get a win here.
I like that call as well.
Now, for the fantasy draft plays, it's not really a cash game slate. I would not recommend playing a lot of your bankroll in cash here. Take some shots in tournaments. So I'm going to give out 3 tournament plays that I really like here. As we were going, I was writing them down. I got Franco, I got Mike Napoli, and I got Jose Abreu. Those are the 3 guys that I like here for tournaments. And if you don't trust Abreu and maybe he goes like 0 for 4 in the game on Tuesday night, you can look at Tommy Joseph for the same price tag.
Those are good calls for sure. Yeah, I like those.
And speaking of fantasydraft.com, if you guys haven't headed over there, make sure you head over there. Use promo code Grinders. That way you get incentives at Roto Grinders for a year for fantasy draft. And, like I said at the beginning, if you like the podcast, make sure you support the site that supports us. So check them out. Check out their PGA product. Jeff, before we get out of here, any final thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I think this is a great tournament slate. If you're playing cash games, I think that Arrieta is the guy you build around, and you can find enough value to build a strong lineup around him. So that would be the direction I take. I should have my game selection article posted on Roto Grinders for, I think, both slates is what they're going to want me to do. So be sure to follow up on that, and you can see like my updated thoughts. I won't be on Grinders Live, but I appreciate everyone listening to us.
I definitely agree. And just so you guys know, Matt Harvey still stinks. Daniel Murphy, 2 home runs against him again on this slate on Tuesday. Matt Harvey, not a guy you want to pitch right now if you're playing daily fantasy. That's my rant for the day. Don't play Matt Harvey. I don't think it's too much of a bold call right now. We'll be back on Thursday. Make sure you guys enjoy this Wednesday split slate. Get a lot of action out there. It's a great day to do so. Good luck to your Golden State Warriors, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.